Right, we'll make a start.
Nice and prompt.
Thank you all for coming, and thanks for a member of the public. I know you came here last time as well, so he's obviously a glutton for punishment, but you're warmly welcome. Can we have apologies, please, Liam?
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Afsar and Councillor Peters.
Right, any declarations of interest from anybody? Well, we're all interested, that's why we're all here. So minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of September. Can someone approve them as a correct record? Thank you. Nice. Are there any matters arising from those minutes at all, from anybody?
No.
No?
No.
Lovely.
Sorted.
Right, we've had to bring an agenda item forward because I think Becky has to leave. So if you can fetch Becky in, please. I like you because you control me well. Welcome, Becky. When you're ready, you can give us your report.
So this is the annual report for last year. So the key achievements that we made is we continued to manage our PPE stocks to make sure we'd got an emergency supply should we need those for any other pandemic and to support any other outbreaks that were taking place. So we continue to do that, and we've continued to provide infection control advice to school, Staffordshire premises, children's centres, etc., to make sure that we managed infections effectively. We also developed a post-COVID-19 syndrome plan to support colleagues with long-term impacts from COVID, and that's helped several employees to get access to NHS support and support with the symptoms that they were experiencing. We've also supported the COVID-19 inquiry, especially submissions around being prepared for the pandemic and the PPE provision. We implemented a new occupational health system in 2021, so we fully used this year to make sure that we understood user feedback and could enhance and resolve any issues to help that move forward. And we also managed to get to a point where we were, on average, seeing everyone last year through to occupational health from referral within 7.2 calendar days. So really trying to help managers make sure that they've got information quickly and accurately to help with absence. We've provided expensive support to the household waste recycling centres during that year to really make sure that we were embedding kind of the risk assessments, the training, and really developing the skills of that management team in terms of the management of waste sites. Significant work was undertaken to really build on the Well-Me Wellbeing strategy that we'd launched in December 21 across all 4 of the pillars, so from physical health, mental health, financial wellbeing and social wellbeing. A couple of the big things that we did that I'll pull out were we launched salary advance so that people could access their salary as they earned it to really help with the cost of living. And we also launched our VivUp platform that we'd had in place for our staff to all of our schools, our care leavers, foster carers and our social care providers as well. Excuse me, I've got a cold. That VivUp platform's been really well received by those, and we're continuing to work with links within those business areas to build on that for people as well. We have also put in place a calendar of activities and really tried to focus on things that would help our children and families, colleagues, and also that would help around the cost of living crisis that people are experiencing. We'd had a lot of interest from staff about something on physical health around losing weight, so we did a 7-session campaign called Lose Weight, Feel Great that we launched through September to December, which has been well received, and they're all recorded so that other people can access them at any point. So it's really helped enhance our offer there. We also launched Recalibrate towards the end of the year in January to really let people think about their mindset around health and well-being and how they could improve that. In the May, we'd launched domestic abuse champion training and now have a network of 60 domestic abuse champions across the organisation. And we've created a dedicated microsite of information which has been well visited, and several colleagues have been supported through the time since we've launched that as well. So really building on our social wellbeing aspects. We also got the Bright Skies app put on the company portal, so that can be on people's work phones, which is an app that allows people to access signposting information around domestic abuse or to keep information about what's happening to them. It looks like a kind of weather app, so it looks very kind of confidential, so that but it gives people the ability to record what they might need to around their own impacts. We also developed the corporate tree management strategy, which is being taken forward in terms of how we can make sure that all the learning and all the actions we wish to take out of the Isabel Trail incident could be taken forward. And we worked with Highways as well on some of the returns of the inspection activities back to the County Council so that we've got good risk assessments in place. We updated guidance and management informations as normal, and we made sure that our Think Well contract was all set up for retendering, which was completed in May this year. We've supported our maintained schools and made sure that we could respond to any incidents that happened during that time, as well as we complete our Entrust SDA for the Health and Safety Service to remain a traded academy. We've maintained 99% of all the SLAs with our maintained schools, and we are supporting head teachers through briefings and also kind of planning meetings as they wish to have those as well. In terms of improving the health of the workforce, we have saw during that year a slight increase in absence. It has been decreasing pretty much ever since that into this year. It is obviously still above the benchmark, CIP benchmark for that year, so it does remain a concentration for us. And we've been working with our people services colleagues around that. In terms of psychological health and musculoskeletal health, they are some of the highest causes of absence. Probably always will be. They often, as we concentrate on one, move between the two as the top cause. But 320 of our employees access the physiotherapy support that is available to them during that year, and we also ran some net promoter score with all the feedback from staff. So our physiotherapy got a score of 78 for that year, and we did the same with Think Well, which is our counselling service. So 344 staff went through Think Well support, and we got an NPS score of 88 for that. So really excellent feedback from the staff that have accessed those services. In terms of our Mindkind, our more proactive support around encouraging people to take their mental health forward in a proactive manner in the way they often do their physical health. Again, we made sure that we got all our mental health first aiders updated, and we supported them with an app for their phones as well that's provided by Mental Health First Aid England. Occupational health received just over 1,200 referrals in, which is a small decrease from the previous year, but remains pretty steady for the County Council at 604 of those. So we continue to support a wide range of people during that, but as I say, we saw people really quickly during that 12 months. In terms of flu vaccinations, those remained popular, and 348 vouchers were supplied to County Council employees, and we set up schools to be able to access ordering those directly. from the same supplier that we've been using. So we've also done a lot of support with premise managers around fire risk assessments and maintained a level of 82% completion of those by maintained schools and 83% by the Core County Council. Every premises has a fire risk assessment, but we do ask that they're reviewed every year. And we've been supporting those that were struggling with that with extra training and support to make sure they feel confident to do those effectively. In terms of audit and evaluations, we did 148 audits during that year. This was really some extra ones in there to catch up from COVID, to make sure we've been everywhere quite recently. So we did that, which has really helped people concentrate again on action plans around supporting of that. We completed the management standards survey with really good return rates from there. 80% for maintained schools, 80% for finance, 100% for EIS, health and care, and 90% for children and families. So we felt we got really good returns within that. Often for some of those dips, it's just like one person that was absent that hadn't completed it. Our accident statistics have remained pretty much consistent during the year, and RIDDOR reportable incidents, which are the more serious, have decreased. We've investigated many accidents, but the HSE has been happy with all of our investigations and not taken anything further forward, and we've had no fee for intervention costs during that year. We've continued to have our kind of joint meetings with the trade unions to move things forward as well. Liability claims remain pretty low, slightly higher than last year, but still quite insignificant considering compared to accident numbers. But people do have 3 years to bring a claim, but we do find now they come quite quickly within any given year. In terms of key legislation and kind of new topics, the HSE were doing quite an audit of all schools around asbestos, and that went really well for us. We didn't have any issues identified in Staffordshire schools, but we have taken the West Midlands kind of findings as a whole group of councils, and we're looking at that this year. And Martin's Law is probably the other biggest thing that we're probably going to need to make sure we put support around. We do already have Stay Safe Terrorism and lockdown arrangements for schools and other premises, but we're going to be looking at that this year in terms of how we move that forward. In terms of the key actions for next year, we will be looking at how we implement the tree management strategy once it goes through its approval process. We're also looking at digital enhancement to our My Health and Safety system, with 3 modules having been funded over the next 3 years, and the first one we'll be implementing is around display screen equipment to support agile working and making sure we've got the right governance in place for that. And then we'll also be looking at how we innovate the kind of approach we do to audit and really digitalise that process as well. We will also be supporting business change, especially around CDM management for highways, and working with children and families to ensure that well-being is high on the agenda and remains there, and we look how we support them through the transformation outcomes that they've been experiencing. We'll also be making sure we're concentrating on our well-me strategy and developing that further and seeing how we can enhance that to make sure we support our staff effectively. We will continue with infection prevention and management, and also maintain high standards in relation to kind of our business as usual activities, and make sure we make the most out of our stakeholder and network arrangements. So in all, I feel we've had a really good year, but as with everything on health and safety, there's always improvements that we can make and should always try to. Hopefully that is helpful.
Thank you, Becky. Very comprehensive report. I mean, it's a bit, I think beyond most of us, what you have to do to, you have to look at every single thing, but again, thank you very much. And are there any questions for Becky? Janice?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. As you say, Chair, a comprehensive report that's in there, and looking at all of the activities that are being done to support the staff, I can imagine looking at the average day sickness going in the direction probably that we wouldn't want it to go in for certainly what's been recorded. The details that goes on, say afterwards, it is going in a downwards trend, but you just mentioned, I think, that it's still above the average, is that correct? Yeah. So are there certain elements that you can extrapolate from all of that information where you might be focusing and targeting your attention on? Because it seems that there's an awful lot that's being done, but we're not necessarily seeing the result from those. That's my first question, if I may, Chair.
Okay. Becky?
Working with our people services colleagues around how we can impact on absence. So during this year, we've been looking at targeted areas, so looking at where we're having the highest levels of absence, where we're seeing absence still increase, and doing some targeted work with those areas of the business jointly between the advice and guidance team in people services that support the managers and with our team. We've been doing joint briefings around complex cases involving occupational health, health and safety and people services to make sure that every aspect's being covered and we're taking through those cases. That has seen quite a reasonable decrease of 1.76 days last time I looked at it last month, so that is heading in the right direction. Health and care still got quite high levels of absence, but it has got like the frontline care, which if you were looking at their absence against kind of care in the marketplace, that's a lot higher than the average of 8 in the public sector. So we are doing a pilot hopefully from January this year. We're just out to recruitment and it looks like we've found somebody to come and join the occupational health team to help with that pilot. So we're going to do a we're calling it Safe and Well, which will be a targeted look at everybody who has more than 4 days absence to try and identify if there's something long-term building, and we can take a more proactive approach with that individual, and for us to provide more kind of constant support to the management teams around staff absence in the care services. So Richard Harling is funding that as a pilot for the next 12 months to see if that can have a real impact in his area. The CIPD report has just come out, which has shown that the 8 days average for public sector, which they had before COVID, has now gone up to 10.6. So we do know that nationally public sector absence has been increasing. Hopefully we can start to bring ours much closer to that over the next year. So we do feel we're starting to have some impact on that.
Yeah, sort of a follow-up. One of the other things that sort of jumped out of the report at me, excuse me, is about violence and aggression that's also being reported, and I did wonder if there is much correlation between that and some of those areas as well. That seems to be something that was improving, but now I think has gone back up again, and is obviously very concerning in terms of the nature of what's being demonstrated there. So I just wondered if there's something that you could expand on with that particular element on the violence and aggression towards employees. And then the last one, if I can just bring it into this particular part. So when I was looking through to the KPIs on page 245 in the report, I did wonder if members were reported in that or if they're reported elsewhere. Out of curiosity on that one, I ask. Thank you.
So I'll answer your last question first. So if member and democratic services add that to the health and safety system, then we are aware. If we get informed that there's been something, we do make sure that it does get added. So wherever that's raised to us as a safety team, that we do that. We also developed a really detailed risk assessment that we relaunched around kind of managing threats to any officer or member, and a process that works between myself, legal, member and democratic services and complaints team to make sure we're connecting all the information. So that is in place and has probably been used a few times in the last year, so hopefully that answers that. In terms of violence and aggression, we did have some really difficult placements in our children's residential last year that did lead to some very serious incidents that needed to be managed, and a review of kind of approaches within some of those placements that they had. I'm pleased to say I'm seeing those figures come down within children's residential now as a result of that review. We are, with waste coming on board, I'm afraid we do see lower levels of violence, but still it is violence and aggression or threats to staff. So they kind of weren't reporting those very well at the beginning of the way sites going live, but kind of us saying, no, it's not acceptable that you face that, and we do want to know about them so that we can respond appropriately. So their reporting of those has improved, but we have also seen kind of greater threats made to our kind of regulatory service staff, so in trade and standards, in kind of frontline highways, and in the kind of anything that's regulatory around kind of waste or buildings, etc. Then we are seeing people being more aggressive and threatening to those staff groups. We did the year before launch a lone worker monitoring system. So obviously we've got that in place to help support our staff. But we do monitor the trends, we do work with the service areas. But I'd rather they report than not report. It's more important that we see that. A lot of our challenging behaviour comes from, a lot of the violence and aggression comes from challenging behaviour. So the public stuff is smaller, but unfortunately we're seeing more challenging behaviour issues to manage, and more in schools as well for them to manage. So we do find it more important that they report it so we can deal with it.
I think 98% of what I was going to ask has been asked, but never mind,
Yes,
that's
you're
how it
very
works.
thorough, Janice,
Including the bit about the members, but there you go. Yeah, I just wondered, because I noticed that with the occupational health, there's quite a jump between 2021 and 2021-22. Is that, do you think, just down to reporting processes? Are you just getting better at understanding what people are facing now in terms in the workplace? So that's why figures are going up to some extent, not because more's happening, but more's being reported.
I think during COVID, I think people didn't report quite as much, and then we've had to really remind people of everything and why we do it and the importance of it. And we've had very much a back to basics campaign across health and safety. So we have really been, with those audits, looking at what they are doing and aren't reporting, and really encouraging that along. So I think we've started to see some of that fall through in the figures. I do believe next year you'll see a slight increase in accidents and violent incidents, but I think that's because we've really encouraged everyone to report absolutely everything, so we make sure we've got that new baseline to really target our approaches with.
No, that's great to see. I mean, obviously, in terms of value figures, people claiming, that's gone down quite a lot. So whatever you're doing well. Well, we hope it continues in that vein anyway. So you don't think there's anything else really you could do to improve that current scenario in terms of making sure that most incidents now, you know, have you got any, I assume it's impossible to measure, but, you know, out of say there's 100% of things that are happening, which shouldn't be happening in the workplace, do you think that you're getting up to this 80-90% of the people now that actually are coming forward and incidents being reported to you?
I think we've seen a really good improvement around that. Our target has been kind of risk-based, so we've really put our time and effort into the high-risk service areas, which is where that's most important. We've still got some other areas of the business where we will be doing that and have been doing that in our audits this year, which is why, looking at the trends of what I'm looking at the moment, I do predict we'll be slightly up this year, but I think that's the follow-on of that work that we've been doing.
One more. In terms of, obviously that's, I assume this covers most of the people that we are directly employing.
Yeah.
Is there anything about all the people that we work through subcontracting, particularly in places like highways and things like that? Are some of those elements being added in at this stage, or are they under their own work schedules and we're not necessarily aware of what's happening in those areas where people are working for the county council but not directly employed, if you see what I mean?
So some of the not directly employed will come through. So if it's a contractor activity, for example, in one of our premises, then we do record that within our own statistics. Amy and other people collect their own accident statistics, but the Infrastructure Plus board obviously have regular reporting around that. If we've got, so So, for example, the history centre that's being built, my team meet regularly with strategic property, and we ask for a report around accidents and incidents in the management of big construction projects like that. So we do have line of sight of those, but we don't include those into our figures. They are those employers' responsibility.
My only question for this is, obviously, if we're getting better, but who we're employing isn't getting better, are we just shifting the blame away, if you see what I mean, into another set of criteria? Or do you think that, as I say, come back to this original question in terms of what we're looking at, do you think we're now being made more aware of that? Because one thing I wouldn't like to do is to put out contracts, they're multi-million-pound contracts. And worst of case, you know, their death rate is far higher than our, I mean, I'm being facetious, but, you know, their injury rate is far higher than what we would expect with their own employees.
So with all commissioners that we work with, we talk to them about the importance of monitoring health and safety within that contract, so that they are assured that that is being managed and any lessons that need to be learnt are learnt. I don't have all of that data under my remit. It is for each commissioner to do that, but when we're out talking and advising commissioners, that's what we recommend. So I do know that is taking place, and I see some of that when we go and support them. But we don't centrally collect all of that information. That is held by each commissioner for each contract.
I'll leave that. Good, Caroline.
Thank you. Caroline?
Hi Becky, thank you for the report. Don't want your job. On page 241 you talk about health and well-being in the workforce, and you're reviewing the mental health support to ensure that you can respond to the national increase. To build organisational team and individual resilience, get that, ensure the people have psychological and other assets to call upon. Is this mainly on the computer, or is this people that they can go to? Because I know psychologists are very hard to find at the minute. So
we have a really strong Think Well support in terms of counselling that's face-to-face, that people can access and get really quick support on. We've obviously got our network of just over 70 mental health first aiders across the organisation. So we make sure that people are really connected and understand those things. We have got lots of support online, and we do lots of wellbeing webinars, but we also have been delivering, so for children and families, we've recently been delivering trauma preparedness training to help managers be able to notice the signs and symptoms of when they might be experiencing any vicarious trauma from the cases they're dealing with. So that's been face-to-face training that we've delivered there. We've also been doing some decompression sessions for significant incidents within children and families to see, as a pilot, to see if that can assist further. So we've been doing a real mixture, I think, this year of things that will help around that. And really just encouraging everyone to think about their mental health a little bit more proactively, rather than at the point they're at crisis with that, you know, there's things we can all do every day to really help and protect our mental health.
And just one other quick question, but maybe not an easy one to answer. If we were here just to grant one wish for you, to make life easier and make statistics and everything better, where would you be going? More resources, or
it would be more resources.
Yeah,
you know, we are a small team. We are a traded team, which allows us to do a lot for the county council. But obviously we have to go and source that work, deliver that work, and then if we have any of that traded income left, we reinvest it often in wellbeing. Okay. So a lot of the wellbeing development that we've done for the organisation has been from the work we've done traded, but we still have to deliver all that.
We are here to look at both sides, so if you put that in your report for next time, you know, that where we could get to with what extra, I'm sure this team would happily look at it.
Yeah, and I've got a meeting with a couple of directors actually anyway over the Christmas period, where we want to look at where we could improve things, and we have had investment from kind of corporate underspend to really help. So John Tradewell sorted that in terms of our investment in the digital development of my health and safety, because again that will help us see line of sight of things a lot easier, and therefore allow us to target our time. So I would say the organisation is really supportive of that, and that we do make the business cases for that.
That's lovely news. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem.
And I hope you can get some of these absences down a little bit next time we see you.
Yeah, he's heading in the right direction at the moment.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, same to you, Becky.
So we're back to page 11. Back to page 11.
Right, that brings us on to Sam, who's been a regular at this committee for a considerable amount of time. I think you've got some good news, haven't you, on the accounts. So Sam, would you like to kick off? You've got quite a few agenda items to cover. If you'd like to make a start, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we're looking to issue our opinion for the 2021 accounts this week, following on from presentation of the updated audit results reports for the County Council and the Pension Fund for those two years. So I'll take the, so first of all, you've got an audit results report for the 2021 audit of the County Council's external audit. I'll briefly take you through the reports, but just on the basis that assuming that they've already been read. So just really focusing on the executive summary. So within the executive summary on page 6 of the report, your page 12, it outlines some areas of scope updates, and I refer to those pages because it includes the updates in terms of issues which impacted the audit, the infrastructure, asset accounting, and the pensions liability. On the following page, it just outlines the status of the audit. So we're just within the closing phase of the audit. So once we receive the signed letter of representation and we have got the final version of the accounts, we'll complete our final subsequent events procedures. Overall, we're intending to issue an unqualified opinion on the financial statements, and also in respect of VFM, so on value for money. Our responsibilities are to report by exception if we identify any significant weaknesses in arrangements as they pertain to the reporting criteria under which we assess arrangements, and there are no significant weaknesses that we'll be reporting on by exception. We do highlight in terms of audit differences that there have been a number of audit differences which management have agreed to adjust, and they're outlined within section 4 of the report. There's one difference which management has chose not to, or two differences which management have chose not to adjust for. The first, an understatement of asset values but of 1.48 million, and the reason why this is not being adjusted for is because it's a judgmental difference. So we will ask in the letter of rep for the explanation to be included. And the second relates to exit packages notes not fully complying with the...
Sam, can I just stop you there? What's the judgmental difference? Because I was a bit surprised that wasn't adjusted. Looks like only 1.48 million. It's
in looking at it, it's a difference where our valuation expert has said it's outside of the range which we would expect. So that's the judgment. But with all valuations, there is a range when it comes to valuations. Management's valuer has concluded that for factors which they've considered in terms of undertaking the valuation, that they're satisfied with the end result. And so that's why it's highlighted as a judgmental difference, and because it's below our materiality levels, we're kind of satisfied with with that basis for non-adjustment. I don't know if Rachel wants to add any further details to that.
Yes, thank you. So our valuers, we contract the district valuation services to provide the valuations for our fixed assets, and they came up with their valuation for this particular asset, and as Hassan said, it didn't fall within the range that the EY technical real estates team would expect. I believe they had some discussions between themselves about the technical valuation issues involved, and we decided to go with the district valuation that they'd provided to us, and Hassan is happy to accept that.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Also, within the executive summary on your page 15, we summarise the key areas of focus and significant risks that were included within our plan, and our conclusion against each of those areas. Within section 2 of the report, there are further details on each of those elements in terms of outlining what the risks are, what the procedures were that we undertook in addressing those risks, and also the conclusions that we've reached. Within section 2, I'll just particularly point to our page 15, which is your page 21, where it provides a summary of some of the differences which were identified in respect of valuations, some of which management have amended for. I'll then skip on to section 3, which is the proposed opinion that we are intending to issue, so it's there for information. And then within section 4, it outlines the differences that have been identified as a result of the audit. There are a number of differences which management have agreed to amend for, and within the controls section of the report, we do highlight the need to ensure that there is a proper kind of review of the financial statements prior to audit, because there have been a number of adjustments that have been identified during the course of the audit. I won't go through each of the differences in turn, but happy to take any questions if there are any on any particular element of those differences.
I'm sure Keith will have something to ask you, probably relates to bidding.
I hope it doesn't, but there you go. No, I've just got 3 questions of sort of really overseeing the whole thing of what you're now doing, which is obviously catching up with what we need to do. My first question is, because there's quite a long time period, 3 years overall, has the responsibility of this committee changed and altered in any way in regard to the way that, not necessarily legislation, but the way that you're now carrying out the audits? Has our responsibilities changed as a committee? That's the first question. The second question, which I think is something that I've sort of picked up on over the whole of what you're doing now, is the scope. How has that increased? Has your responsibility as an auditor and the scope at which you are now looking at these accounts and therefore advising us one way or the other, has that scope actually increased since 2019 or whenever it was the last time anyone signed off a set of our audited accounts? So I think I'll leave it there. I mean, there is a question of what happened to 21, 22 as well, but I think that's because you haven't finished it yet. I assume that's still in the books to do. And we jumped up between 21 to 23 on the pension stuff. But sorry, these are sort of overall questions. I wasn't really specifically. I have got some specifics for this particular item, but it was just those overarching questions are the things that I was just wanted some clarity with, really. So that we know what we're meant to be doing this side of the table and with the chair and everything else. Thank you.
In terms of the committee's responsibilities, your responsibilities as a committee haven't changed. In terms of the scope of our audit, the scope of our audit remains the same. However, there have been areas which have arisen during the course of the audit, technical issues which have had to, additional work have had to be undertaken due to points that have arisen on a national basis. So the infrastructure assets as an example of that. So we've had to do additional work because of kind of issues that have arisen across the whole sector in relation to that, but the work that we've had to undertake in respect to that is still in order to assess whether or not, in our opinion, the accounts present the true and fair position of the authority. In relation to the 21-22 audit and why you've got a 22-23 pension plan for the pension fund on the agenda today. So I think what I have mentioned at previous committee meetings is that across the whole sector, the state of the public sector audit market is, there are significant challenges across the board. Just recently, in terms of 22-23, only 5 audits were reported on by the end of September for the 22-23 year, taking the number of outstanding audits. I think it's just over 980 at that particular point in time, which is indicative of the issues facing the whole market. As a result of that, Lee Rowley, as he was Minister for Local Government at that particular point in time, did issue a letter in July outlining the challenges facing the sector and highlighting the proposals for a reset of the local government audit market. And the aim of the reset is to get to a position where for the 23-24 financial year that can be kind of effectively back on track. And in order to do that, it's kind of highlighted and proposed that there would be across the board a number of qualified or disclaimed opinions in order to get to that reset position. Guidance was expected to come out towards the end of September this year and then October, but we're still waiting as a sector. We're still waiting for that guidance, and in the meantime, there has been a cabinet reshuffle with changes in responsibility. We're expecting that the guidance will be coming out. There was as well as the letter in July, Lee Rowley did also publish an article in Municipal Journal in I think it was November, where he reiterated the points that were outlined within the letter. The intention still to have the reset, and also basically just reiterating points that were made. We've, as a firm, we've recently this week, earlier on this week, was it last week, issued a letter to all Section 151 officers outlining what we're doing as a firm and highlighting how we're taking forward our and responding to the proposals as they stand. So within the information that's been communicated to date, it's as well as outlining the need for the reset and the impact on what that might mean for opinions, it's highlighted that there'll still be a responsibility for auditors to report on pension fund audits, so that is still going to be continuing, and also the need to provide assurance in terms of value for money work. So in terms of 22-23, we're prioritising and we are working on the pension fund audits. We're also undertaking work to discharge our value for money responsibilities in order to bring a report on the value for money arrangements for years that haven't been concluded, and also taking action to close out audits which are closer to for us getting over the line. So they're some of the key features which have been highlighted within the within our letter and our response to what's happening. But we are still waiting for that guidance to come out from DLUC in terms of what that means for yourselves as local government bodies, and also what it means for us as audit firms.
What I can say is I didn't expect such a long explanation, but thank you very much. What you're telling us to some extent, then, if I can sort of round it up to some extent, I'm not putting it with, the goalposts are still moving to some extent on the national level, and you're still on the pitch trying to adjust to make sure that we get the information that we need to assess to some extent. Is that correct?
Yeah, the goalpost, as it's kind of currently been communicated, has indicated a backstop date of the 31st of March for getting audits
completed.
Well, I'll say concluded, but concluded also means disclaimed opinions. Okay. So that's what's currently been communicated, but that's in the absence of the formal guidance. So when that comes out, whether the 31st of March still remains,
okay.
Kind of like,
well, I won't continue this because we'll be here to next Christmas by the sounds of it if we carry on.
I don't know whether.
That's my question about scoping and other things in terms of everything seems to be still quite dynamic. The only question I came out, and I think you actually mentioned it in your response, was the £6 million from the infrastructure assets, which seem to be slightly different. Is that down to opinions again, or is that down to actual and then I'll let the other members come in. And apologies to the chair for hugging so much time on this one. Thank you.
So that difference is being amended for. So the only unadjusted difference was the difference which I referred to earlier, the 1.5 million and the disclosure note on exit packages.
I noticed we've been discussing 2021. How confident are you of actually getting back on track so that next March we'll be looking at the audit for this current financial year? Thank you.
So the current financial year, the 23-24 audits, we as a firm will not be responsible for that. So under the PSA contract, the 23-24 audit year goes to another firm. I can't remember. I've just off the top. KPMG are taking on responsibility for that year. The part of the intentions of the reset is for the whole sector to get back on track for 23-24, but in the absence of really what it needs in order to get to that position, it does need the guidance to be coming out sooner rather than later. So if the guidance doesn't come out soon, then there's a risk of a domino effect that you know, the work won't be able to be started within a time to get it completed in line with the intentions of the reset. I mean, just speaking personally, if you were you know, for a portfolio of audits in terms of any kind of given year, if you're looking to undertake those in line with a timetable which we would previously have had, then for a portfolio of audits, I would be wanting my portfolio of audits to be for 23-24. I'd wanting a number of them to be starting the planning in January, and then can't start all of them at the same time, but then to have the remainder to be completed by March next year, in order then again to have the phased delivery of getting the interim work and the final accounts work within a time and a timetable, then to allow reporting in the autumn. But if the guidance doesn't come out, and if audit planning isn't able to start within a timeline which I've just outlined, it does put at risk the 23-24 delivery, because it would just have a domino effect. But that's just speaking personally about the need for what needs to happen practically to get that reset to work.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that there was a fair amount of detail with the some of the adjusted differences, and there's quite a few that have been highlighted in there. So really, there's a question with regards to, is that a typical amount that you would normally be expecting to see for this type of organisation? I am assured by the fact that these have been corrected by management, however, but that sort of quantity coming through.
It is at a level which is higher than we would have seen in previous years, which is why within our assessment of control environment and section 7 we made the recommendation that we do, that to undertake a detailed review of accounting treatments and the underlying information to make sure that some of these issues are picked up during that process.
And then following on from that question, then we've got those unadjusted differences. So we've got the two items, so the one on the valuation and the second one on the exit packages. Again, would that be something that you would expect from a similar organisation, that those wouldn't be adjusted?
So it's not uncommon for where we have, particularly where there are judgmental differences on valuations, that we report those as unadjusted. I think the issue for us is it approaching a material level, because if it is approaching a material level, then it would have an impact on our opinion. So it's not uncommon to have those types of unadjusted differences, and just having two isn't a large number.
If I could just ask one follow-on from that. So given that we've got a comment at the bottom of that particular one about Ordnance Standard Committee agreeing with management, and then they remain unadjusted, given the time frame that we're working in here, and on that second particular one on the disclosure of exit packages, are we in a position now whereby we do have that information, or is that something that we're still waiting? I'm looking over this direction, because I appreciate it's probably not one for yourself, Hassan, but if I could just get some clarity on that, please.
Yes, thank you. So for the exit packages, yes, we do have that information now. So in the 21-22 accounts, it is reported in those categories in line with the code. And again, going forwards, we just unfortunately didn't have the information going back far enough to be able to collate it and to put it into this set of accounts.
Thank you, Hussein. Boy, have we waited a long time for this report, but it is pleasing to see it here. Very pleasing. It's something that we've wanted to sign off for a long time. I'm going to take you to page 49, the fees, the extra fees that have come out of this. And the only reason that I'm doing that is, my question is, have any of these come about because of the delay? Because the delay isn't Staffordshire County Council's fault. So there's my first question. I know the PSAA are the people who decide whether you get the extra fees or not ourselves. But I just wondered how you came. I mean, it's quite large extra fees, is what I'd say.
There are two elements there, which so the infrastructure assets and the impact of the triennial valuation are both issues which have kind of arisen since since the 2021 audit should have been concluded. So they're both elements in terms of which have come about during that period. The fees are in the ranges there, kind of are outlined so setting out what the potential fees will be. What we'll, on conclusion of the audit, what we'll do, we'll have a discussion with management on our proposed fees. If the fees that we're putting forward are disagreed with or not agreed with, then they'll go to PSA for determination. And even if they are agreed with, they still require PSA determination. So we do highlight within note 1 that in 1920 we did propose additional fees of £123,000 were put to PSA. PSA determined that the additional fees, in their opinion, we kind of still disagree with it, but in their opinion, they outlined that the fees were additional fees were to be £79,770. So that's the. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Sam. Do you want to sort of enlarge a little bit on the Staffordshire Pension Fund now?
Sure.
Oh, I thought we'd done it as a whole.
Okay.
Well,
I think he said.
I think you already touched on it. I think Keith asked the question, but is that...
Chair, but this has been with us before. I thought we were doing it.
It's just down there as agenda for
okay. Whatever.
I don't know if you've got anything more to add.
The Pension Fund audit results report has been with the committee before. What we've done is just updated within blue the text, which has changed from the version that you've previously seen. I'm happy to take any questions on the audit results report for the Pension Fund audit. And
right, I know Keith asked a question, so I think we've covered it mainly.
Okay.
But I think we need to go to Rachel now, don't we, to the agenda item 6, the representation letter. Rachel, would you like to carry on?
Yes, thank you. I'll just ask for the committee to approve these letters of representation which we need to make to EY in order for them to provide us with the signed audit opinions for 2021. So there's a letter that relates to the County Council, there's a letter that relates to the Pension Fund, and if members are happy to approve these letters, or if there are any questions on the letters, then that would be really helpful in order just to take these final steps and close off on 2021.
So I'll second that if anyone's got anything to add. Thank you very much for that.
Brilliant.
So we're back to you again, Hassan, on the audit planning report 22-23, agenda item 5.
Thank you, Chair. So the third report which I've got on the agenda is the planning report for the 22-23 Staffordshire Pension Fund. In terms of section 1, provides an overview of the strategy, and it highlights the risks that we've identified during our planning processes, and provides some details of those risks. It also outlines whether there's been a change from the previous year. In terms of the misstatements due to fraud, the valuation of level 3, so level 3 are deemed to be complex investments or hard to value investments, and valuation of property investments and going concern, they're all remained, there's no change from the prior year. What we do have as a new risk is the actuarial valuation of retirement benefits, and we've highlighted that as a new inherent risks, as the due to the level of estimation uncertainty, and also it also links into the triennial valuation for the 22-23 year. Within the overview of the strategy, your page 111 also provides details of the materiality levels and the testing thresholds that we'll be using in terms of undertaking our audit. So planning materiality is set at £66 million. That is that's the level at which we would deem a difference on the pension fund audit to be material in terms of our opinion. The performance materiality of 50 million, that is a level which drives our testing strategy and our sample selections. And the 3.3 million audit difference, that's the level at which we'd report any differences to the committee. Page 112 summarises the audit scope, and then section 2 of the report provides more details on the risks that have been identified in our proposed procedures to address those risks. Our work on the 22-23 pension fund audit is currently ongoing, and looking to have that concluded early in the new year. But happy to take any questions on the plan, if there are any questions on the plan.
No, it's not. It's the plan. I think overall, it all looks really, not a problem to say, because you come here before. But are we actually, in effect, auditing what the pension committee does as well, or are we just purely looking at it from external element on this particular part of it?
So in terms of the pension fund audits, we're auditing the financial statements of the pension fund, and as kind of in line with your constitution, the audit committee is deemed to be those charged with governance for overseeing the financial statements. I suppose officers will probably be in a better position to comment as to whether there's any overlap between the responsibilities of the audit committee and the responsibilities of the pension fund committee.
Just to add from when we had a look at the terms of reference of the Audit and Standards Committee, it is within the remit of this particular committee to approve the financial statements and to receive the reports, the ISIS 260s for those charged with governance. So it's our responsibility to scrutinise those, to gain those assurances that we've got suitable controls in place over the financial arrangements and operational governance within the pension fund system as well. And then as part of our report back to council, to provide full council with that assurance that these statements are accurate and reflect the appropriate controls in place.
So what is the difference? What does the pensions committee therefore look after in terms of, obviously they're doing some sort of the planning of where they're going to be investing and all the rest of it. And so we look at the performance and the outcome and the differences and all the rest of it within the audit. Does this go back to the pensions committee at all, or do they just look at the results that they look at? Or, I mean, I'm just just a bit curious as to where are we taking on responsibility? It's just a tick box exercise are we doing, or is it something that's a bit more down to earth on this?
It's taken me a little bit out of my comfort zone because obviously I'm not part of the pension fund committee.
Right. No, right.
Do you want
Rachel, you answer that.
Yeah.
So the pension fund accounts and this audit plan and the audit reports do go to the pensions committee, and that's for their information. And this committee has the responsibility for approving and the governance oversight, as Lisa said, yes. Okay.
No? Well, thank you, Hassan, for coming to see us. I know it's been a bit of a long haul, which I'm sure you're getting towards the end. Hopefully it'll be the end of the matter, and we'll move on to pastures new. Thank you very much for your coming today.
Thank you, Chair.
So we move on to agenda item 7. That's the annual governance statement. That's over to Lisa now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Presenting in front of you today the annual governance statement for 2022-23 year of account. The accounts are still at draft report stage, so the annual governance statement is still at report stage, but because it is covering the period from April 22 through to that point, it was felt that it was timely to bring that this particular statement to yourself to give you an oversight of the governance arrangements that have been in place. Okay, so if I can start as part of the basis on which the annual governance statement is produced, it's from the review of the effectiveness of the governance framework, including the system of control, which is outlined at Appendix 2, which is page 189 through the agenda papers. So this follows the usual process that the Corporate Governance Working Group take in order to review the governance framework. So firstly, we look at the annual review of the Code of Corporate Governance. You may recall that we bring annually, normally in the July meeting each year, the updated Code of Corporate Governance, which is our framework of governance activities across the County Council. Nominally, there's an action plan attached to each review of that code, and that is reviewed and reported on as part of this particular paper. During February 2021, the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny published its a project regarding looking for the early identification of risk around governance, and that has been reviewed during the 22-23 by the Statutory Officers Group to ensure that any of those particular early warning flags have been, if applicable, or identified and suitable action taken. On page 191, we've got the diagrammatical representation of our governance framework, which shows how we've actually demonstrate compliance with the SITFA code of corporate governance. That's been updated again to highlight where we've amended particular procedures or we've added additional information. On the next page, we've got the action plan that I mentioned earlier with regard to the corporate governance, the Code of Corporate Governance that was applicable in 2022. So the detail shows there is the action point and the progress that we've got at the moment in time. So those actions will be carried forward where appropriate. The next supporting paper looks at how the organisation has dealt with those significant governance issues that were identified in 21-22 AGS that are presented last December. And where appropriate, we will bring actions forward into 22-23's annual governance statement to ensure that they continue to be dealt with. A number of actions, governance issues, not really specifically time-bound within year, so often spread over a number of years, and that is how they're tracked, and you can see how we've dealt with them, and then what work is left to be outstanding. Supporting paper 3 deals with the latest external audit opinion of our control environment, and also the value for money opinion. The latest available information at the time of preparation of this particular document related to 1920. Obviously, you've now received 2021's information, and I will update that accordingly. So there is nothing, no major issues to raise either on the council's financial statements, and they have not identified anything in relation to the value for money opinion. Supporting paper 4 deals with the replicates the outturn conclusion from the internal audit report that you received in July, where an adequate assurance was given regarding the control environment, and within that particular paper I've pulled out where specific mention was made in relation to the work and the control issues to be taken forward during 23-24. Supporting paper 5 is other sources of assurance, and that is whereby the statutory officers, i.e. the Director of Finance, the Chief Financial Officer, and also the Monitoring Officer highlight any issues that they may have had during the year or the period up to the point the accounts are signed in relation to the governance framework, and during this period no matters were raised. Supporting paper 6 deals with other sources of assurance that are available in order to ensure that we've got a robust governance framework. We've looked at the work of the scrutiny and overview committees. There's an annual report that's generated, and there were no major issues that were highlighted during the year through that particular route. The integrated performance report is also considered as well to see if there's any issues in relation to the financial or the performance of the council services. And again, I've taken the latest version available, which was October 23. I've highlighted the key areas where we have had strong governance arrangements, and then the key challenges which relate to children in care, SEND, adult social care demand, and the highways performance. Also, within this paper, we look at how directors provide assurance statements. In respect of the governance structure, we have a signed statement from the Director of Corporate Services and Deputy Chief Exec stating that there was no major issues, again, within the governance framework, so that's an additional piece of assurance. Corporate risk management and strategic risk register, there has been some work, detailed work undertaken regarding the digital solution to ensure that the corporate risk register is maintained and updated on a regular basis, and we'll be bringing forward to a future meeting of the Audit Committee the latest version of the strategic risk register. Also picks up how you've had additional reports back to the Audit and Standards Committee in relation to the significant risks that were identified, and they're noted there, and that you've also received and approved your annual report in April 23 that went through to full council in May 23 presented by the chairman, and there were no major issues, significant issues that were flagged as part of that arrangement. In respect of external reviews and inspections, talk through the various reviews and inspection reports that we've received, particularly in relation to children's services. We've looked at how the accelerated progress plan has been monitored and delivered, and a report was presented to the committee late in 22, highlighting actions taken in respect of that. To note that there is a full Ofsted inspection was undertaken in November 23. We're still awaiting the results of that inspection, and they are anticipated to be known at the beginning of 2024. In relation to the LEP partnership, there has been no major issues identified as part of those various pieces of assurance work that have taken place regarding their core funding. In relation to standards and ombudsman report, there was an annual report received by the committee in July 23 in relation to complaints regarding elected members. No significant matters were identified. 11 complaints were received and concluded, and one case was not entered into that particular process. Whilst there was no underlying theme to the nature of the complaints, the annual report did highlight that a number related to comments made by members either in meetings or publicly, i.e. the press, and that reference was made to ensuring that the code of conduct is complied with in that basis. The annual report of customer feedback and complaints service for 22-23 was presented to corporate overview and scrutiny, and the conclusions from that is replicated within there. The LGSO annual review letter was also received in July, and whilst there was no major matters from a formal reporting perspective, there was reference to undertaking remedies in a timely manner and within agreed timescales, and that had been highlighted again for the 4th year in succession. So actions being taken to ensure that those matters are dealt with on a timely basis. Whistleblowing matters were also considered as well by the monitoring officer. There was 2 during 22-23 and then 3 subsequently to the production of this particular document. And they are, where appropriate, considered by the Corporate Governance Working Group and appropriate action taken in relation to that. With regard to strengthening the Constitution, there was the review of the scheme of delegation, and that has been completed in June 22, and that is now up and running and uploaded onto the intranet and website. With regard to, it is recommended that as part of considering the governance arrangements that you have a look at compliance with the SIPFA Financial Management Code. That self-assessment is undertaken. That was performed again during 22-23 and there were no issues to raise as part of that, and that the review confirmed that there was a high conformance with the requirements as in previous years. The guidance also does state that we look at where the governance arrangements have amended where appropriate in relation to the COVID-19 response. So if there were any areas where governance arrangements were slightly deviated from the recognised version, then you are to declare them within your annual governance statement. The review also considered where they were applicable. There was only one item outstanding, and that was in relation to the schools admissions appeals, and that is now ceased. That came to an end September 22. There's been no reduction in the scope of internal audit work in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, and therefore sufficient work has been performed to be able to produce the head of audit annual opinion. And that Becky made reference to the national COVID inquiry. We've also supported that with regard to material being provided for the response in respect of Module 5, the procurement and PPE, and then we're supporting the preparation of information for Module 6, the care sector. So overall, we concluded on those particular areas. So that is the review that the Corporate Governance Working Group did, which goes into used as the basis of the preparation of the actual annual governance statement itself, which is on page 167. If I just find that. In relation to this particular document, it follows the same process that we've used in previous years, where we assess the governance framework and ensure that it's been robustly prepared. In relation to what do we determine to be a significant governance issue, at section 10, which is on page 175, down at the bottom there are 6 bullet points that detail what is considered to be a significant governance issue. So a 6, does it undermine or threaten the achievement of organisational objectives? Is it a significant failure to meet the principles of good governance? Is it an area of significant concern to an inspector, external auditor or a regulator? Has the monitoring officer or section 151, the Director of Finance, Head of Audit, or yourselves, the Audit and Standards Committee, recommended that it be included? Is it an issue of public or stakeholder concern? And finally, is it an issue that cuts across the organisation and requires cooperation to address it? So in respect of the governance issues that have been identified for 22-23, they are at section 14, which is on page 186. We've continued to bring across the ones that were outstanding for 21-22, so there's 11 of those that have been brought forward, and we've had added an additional item at AGS 12, which relates to the review of cybersecurity governance arrangements operating within third-party suppliers to council systems and services, really to ensure that robust assurances are received to confirming that they are sufficiently robust and provide the appropriate level of protection. So we felt that that was needed, particularly in light of recent events. AGS 11 is also has been strengthened to ensure that where appropriate, following the Ofsted inspection of children's services, where appropriately, if there are any recommendations or issues raised as part of that report, they will also be addressed as well. So that's, in summary, that is the proposed draft annual governance statement for 22-23, and I'm happy to take any questions regarding the information.
Thank you for all the detail in there as well. I'm going to resist talking about specifics because I think you've just answered some potential ones of those. First of all, auto-predict is one of those things that I'm particularly aware of now, so you just might want to have a look at the Chief Executive's spelling of his name in the report. Okay, that's one of the things I'm particularly sensitive to at the moment, and that's on page 188. With regards to the rest of the details, again, there's some huge different elements and aspects that are being covered in here. And for me in the past, looking at how we maintain all of those, and we know we've got the systems in place to be able to do that. Do you think that for me, it's down to the engagement and the communications that exist between the whole of the organisation? And I think some of our previous agenda items have brought home the importance of this process. And for me, it's just reinforced that even more. Do we have sufficient engagement and cooperation on those? We can see we've got the contact people. Do you think that is as good as what it needs to be able to make sure we're making that progress?
Thank you. I think there's always more that you can do, and it is definitely an area that the organisation is focusing on, risk management and controls, and providing those assurances is definitely high profile within the organisation. So yes, I think going forward I'm seeing more and more engagement with individuals, so yes, and also the role of the Corporate Governance Working Group is being strengthened as well. Thank you.
And secondly, you highlighted the element of the whistleblowing. You highlighted the whistleblowing calls that have been made, I think that have increased since the production in the report as well. again, for me, it's about how we find out about the information, so we can rely on all different layers within the organisation to be able to present that. Do you think that's an effective process? I know it's reported elsewhere as far as the details concerned, but for me, it's one of those elements that maybe gives a little bit more comfort in the fact that we are making sure that everybody feels that they can speak, and certainly about things that maybe need some attention being put to it.
Thank you. I mean, there is the policy, there is the whistleblowing policy, which is available. I'll double check to make sure that that is, I'm sure that that is on the intranet within the organisation, so people can access that. HR would then be able to provide direction to that. But it's I know that with some OD work that I'm doing within my own team, things that you often feel and think are fully embedded within an organisation, it's quite surprising when you get that feedback up from the bottom staff that you think, oh, well, we've said that, etc., it's available. It's just about that reminder. So I think that's an action and a query I will take back with us to Corporate Governance Working Group in order to be able to ensure that we've got those robust processes in place.
Graham?
I think it's clear that the organisation as a whole has tightened up over the last 2.5 years, that we've been, most of the committee members here have been on this committee. But I'd like to give both Lisa, Debbie and Rachel reassurance that if there was something that you thought that we could do, you can come directly to us and we can make things happen. It's really, really important. This is possibly the most important committee outside Cabinet. And I think in terms of this county council being a robust, well-run company, then please feel reassured that you can always come to us if you thought something needed to be doing. And we will make sure it happens, because that's one of our jobs. But thank you very much.
No, that's the last thing is really for the AGS as a draft to be approved. Thank you.
I just a quick question. On section B, which is 214, not to, no one wants to go into details. I just wondered, you did mention it about the risk assessments and everything else that are happening at the moment, and the government risk assessment. And also on the table further back, I think you had them as level 1, which were the two things that needed improvement or needed adjustment or whatever. And obviously you mentioned Appendix 2A on page 214 as well. So all those things seem to be linked together. Is that intentional, the fact that you're looking at this from a risk assessment point of view and risk management perspective? Is there still work that you're on? I assume there is, from what I can read on this. There's still work ongoing in this area. As we've already said, is there anything else that you think that we could help out with, or is it something that's more internal? And is it something that the governance working group, who I assume there's no members on that, it's purely an internal process within the staffing areas of things. So could you just explain a little bit more about what you're doing to that to try and improve that whole situation there in terms of making sure that it's a bit less risky in the long term?
Okay, thank you. In relation to the corporate risk register, we have got it's the joint software that we have with the internal audit side, is that we have a system, a process whereby individuals can record risks, which then allow them to be managed more regularly through a digital process, as opposed to more of a manual arrangements, which is what is reflected at the score of the 1. Excuse me. That allows individual improvements that have been identified to individual risks to have a due date for when they need to be implemented by, and also a named responsible officer who will do that. So that is that's in the process of being rolled out, and we just need to check that we've got the licenses to be able to do it in that format, and that those license costs aren't prohibited. Yeah. So in terms of that, so and that will then allow regular reports to be generated, which the results are then going to be incorporated into the performance and monitoring, performance and finance reports that go through to SLT and Cabinet. So those risks will be incorporated into that. That will come back to you, and we were just debating as well as to what that looks like in terms of the information that goes through into the quarterly report, and then what comes through to Audit and Standards Committee, because ideally you should receive the whole of the corporate risk register, but when you start to look at that, that gets quite a detailed and complex document. And yes, and is that the right, and is that the information and level of information that you actually want to look through? A pie chart, okay. So I will need to work on that and ensure that I can get that information, that data presented in a suitable summary format. Yeah.
Just one other little question. I notice here that joint funding and billing of CCGs, continuing healthcare. CCGs, are we still involved with that, because it's Integrated Care Board and everything else now? So I'm a bit surprised that the CCGs are still being mentioned on documents in 2022-23. No, the CCGs are still being mentioned in this report, and not the Integrated Care Board. I don't understand how we can still be billing CCGs when they don't exist. Whether I've missed something there or not, I don't know. But anyway, okay.
It's the timing, it's the previous audit, so it's the timing of that particular piece of work, when that piece of work was undertaken, hence that's the reason why it was called that particular name.
Yeah, it's 22-23.
Yeah, that would have been that piece of work.
The care boards came in before then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I know, but even so, that's another long way, that is. Thanks.
Okay.
Right, we'll move over to agenda item 9, the National Forward Initiative. Debbie, over to you. Much more interesting.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So this report provides members with an update on the latest National Forward Initiative 2022. On page 247 of your pack, the first page of that report gives some further background to the initiative. So just to remind members, this exercise is run every 2 years. The data is collected round about October, November last year. And as part of that, we have the various fair processing notices that go out, that members, we talk to members about what that entails. And then in January 2023, the potential data matches come back. So again, just to remind members, the data sets that we send off to the Cabinet Office is payroll, pensions, creditors, blue badges and travel passes. Back in 2020, there was an issue with the residential care, home residence and direct payments data sets, because they're now considered patient data, so they were excluded since 2020. However, just to give you some assurance, we have plugged that gap ourselves, so the counter-fraud manager undertakes his own internal audit matching in relation to the Tell Us Once service, so that matches deceased records against our own care director records for deceased for care residents and direct payments, to highlight potential payments that we're paying to people that have unfortunately been deceased. So we do cover off that potential gap at the moment. So the full details of each of the data sets and where we are investigating those are included as Appendix 1. That's quite a lengthy appendix. but some key figures just to extract from that appendix. So we had returned just over 16,000 potential data matches. Clearly not all of those are going to be fraud. A lot of them is just maybe a reporting error or something that we just need to look at. And again, this exercise does act as a good housekeeping exercise for us to make sure our records are all up to date. As part of our own sampling and data analytics, we're proposing to look at around about 13,000 odd matches. We've closed 5,500 to date. So far, we have identified overpayments of just short of 14,000, bearing in mind that this exercise costs just short of 4,000 to participate in. It's a worthwhile exercise, not just in terms of cost, but also that the deterrent and preventative factor as well. So, Chair, just happy to take any questions in relation to any of those matches, but this is our regular report, so it's just to note progress to date.
Okay, Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Debbie, if I take you to the table on page 263, the lower half under total compliance, developing an anti-fraud culture. Lisa's already said that sometimes when you dig down, it's surprising that staff at the lower end of the organisation might not actually get what the senior management are trying to do. So how can we enhance this developing an anti-fraud culture, really?
We have got in draft at the moment an e-learning package that we hopefully will roll out. We're just in discussions at the moment whether that becomes a mandatory training element or not. Also, the counter-fraud manager does undertake various fraud awareness campaigns. We are partnered with Stoke, the Staffordshire Counter-Fraud Partnership as well, where we do targeted campaigns every now and again. That's had to relaunch itself because it has stalled because one of the individuals at Stoke left. Now our counter-fraud manager with the new audit manager at Stoke are revitalising that whole partnership. So a lot of it is around fraud awareness. We do have our own intranet pages as well that we keep up to date. So where we have got successful prosecutions, we like to highlight those. So it really is around fraud awareness. We again, you'll probably remember as part of the outturn, there's quite a few control weaknesses relating to schools. So we like to go and sit on the Bursa forums and just highlight what is good practice and things that could prevent and detect fraud there as well. So we're constantly reminding all parts of the council in relation to fraud awareness. And again, I could go on for quite a long time actually. Within the household waste recycling environment, we are starting to do some targeted campaigns there, some training in terms of the operatives, because again, that is an area that is susceptible to fraud. So we want to make people aware that they can come and approach internal audit with any concerns. And again, that's sort of piggybacking off the idea of the whole, revision of the whistleblowing procedure as well, how to report a concern. And we do have an open door policy. So there's lots of things that we do get involved in throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Janice?
Yes, Chair. Just staying with item 9 on this particular one, because I think the table was actually in the next one, but if I can come back to that later. It was a comment, really. I think the detail in here, when we look at value for money, is totally identifiable there. Even down to the fact that it was, we're looking at about 13,000, but we know that that's from 3 duplicate invoices. So it was just to say, I think the detail in there has been particularly helpful. No specific question, just a comment.
We need to go back. Keith asked you to approve you asked a question on the management representation letter. I asked you to approve it, but you asked a question instead. This is agenda item 6. The management, we've got to approve the management representation letter.
We didn't. The chair went to you for approval and you asked the question. Can we just vote? Can we just vote for approval? Yeah. Unanimous.
Caroline pointed out we haven't done it. Debbie, do you want to carry on with the internal audit plan?
Okay, so the next agenda item is agenda item 10. So this report provides members with an update in the delivery of the internal audit plan for 2023-24. The first part of the report just gives you a flavour and some of the key highlights of the work that's been undertaken by the internal audit team during the first part of the year. So as is normal, the first 2 quarters of the year is largely taken up with various grant verification exercises, and I've listed there some of the key grant pieces of work that we do get involved in, from the Disabled Facilities Grant, Building Resilient Families, the Bus Service Operators Grant, through to the Multiply programme. So we do get involved in a whole multitude of grant verification exercises during the year. However, we do obviously balance that with continuing our support with key corporate projects. And again, I've listed some in paragraph 1 on page 261 of your pack. So we continue to work and provide support on the Highways Transformation Programme, the Corporate File Plan Project, which is a very important digital project for the Council. We also have the ICT Audit Manager, who is working with the finance team in relation to the My Finance Centros upgrade, as well as the new back system, which is obviously critical to our operations. We also get involved in various other corporate initiatives, so we have a representative on the Employee Voice group, and also we have 2 individuals that are constantly going through the Creation and Innovation Task Force to bring back the idea that we all have creative ideas and to try and ensure that we improve as a team. Over on page 262 of your pack, you will see at paragraph 2, there have been 15 additional requests for assistance during the year so far. And as a result of that, we do have to balance our resources. So as you would expect, there are some audits that drop off the end and become cancelled through one way or another. They are attached as Appendix 1 to this report with an explanation as to why they've been cancelled. A lot of those, it's sort of natural wastage, whereby the various improvement or revised process hasn't actually taken place. So we revisit that. We don't lose sight of that. We just look and revisit that as part of the next year's internal audit planning process. But overall, we do remain on schedule to meet our key performance targets. So in terms of delivery of the audit plan, we are required to achieve at least 90% delivery, and we are on target to achieve and hopefully exceed that. And we continue to get good positive reviews from our customer satisfaction surveys. So turning to page 263 of your pack, this is the table refers to the work that we've undertaken to date, and it's split across our planned audit work, our additional work, and then our compliance reviews, and then our corporate fraud pieces of work as well. So our work largely is split across the year, and there's 238 pieces of work that we sort of do and we track throughout the year. And again, those figures sort of fluctuate as we go throughout the year. Not only do we look at county council work, we also undertake external client work. So for this year, our external client work is South Staff's Council and also our pension fund. Previously, we have done academy work, although we did have a change of resources at the first part of the year, and therefore we didn't feel that we had the available resources to undertake academy work for 23-24. However, we will look to revisit and hopefully provide academy support next year. But at the moment, we decided to just focus on the county council and our other external clients. The second part of this report refers to our recommendation tracking, and that's obviously a very important element of the work that we do, because once we highlight improvements, we want to make sure that those improvements are actually made and that the control weakness has been improved upon. So we're currently tracking 1,212 audit recommendations, and you'll see on the table at the top of page 265 of your pack the split between those corporate recommendations and those that relate to schools. At paragraph 9, you will see that of the 35 overdue recommendations relating to schools, there are 11 high priority recommendations relating to governance, income and banking, payroll, lettings and leases, and just to give you assurance that they will continue to be tracked with the bursars and the head teachers until their full implementation. Over on page 266 of your pack, you will see in graphical format the various overdue recommendations for the corporate area, and you will see that there are 6 overdue high-level recommendations, and the details of those appear in Appendix 2 of this report. Again, we have to thank the Audit and Standards Committee here because, as you are aware, limited assurance reports and top risk reviews come to this committee, and it's through you asking for various progress reports do we get that timely implementation of recommendations, and in particular those high-level recommendations. So your continued support in that area is grateful. Thank you. Also, the actual recommendation tracking portal is really important because it allows auditees to update their recommendations in real time. And again, we feel that that really helps with the implementation of recommendations because they do get notified of all overdue recommendations. And also the wider leadership team do have oversight of what's outstanding in their area, so they can chivvy and chase as well for the implementation of those. So again, overall, 6 high-level recommendations overdue is not a bad result, really. So, Chair, just happy to take any questions in relation to any of that detail.
Any questions, Debbie? Janice, I'm sure you've got something to say.
I'd hate to disappoint you, Chair. Yeah, some of it is the terminology, because I saw the 7 cancelled ones, but when you start reading the detail, it's more of a reschedule in some cases, as opposed to a cancelled. And the volume of work that you're going through, again, when we first started to look at this some years ago now, it appears my head was just spinned, so I don't know how you managed to do that, but I think the systems that are in place obviously give that certainly the oversight to be able to do that. With the ones where we haven't got any specific times, the ones where they have gone back, some have got new target dates in, others haven't. Is it still anticipated that they would be done within this particular cycle, within this particular time frame? Is my first question. And then secondly, I thought the information on the resource within the area was really helpful, and certainly how you are developing that within the organisation. But is it down to the resource that any of those slippages might still continue, or is it other factors?
So within that table, we do have a number that aren't started at the moment, and that's just because of the timetable. So a lot of our audits, as you can imagine, are financial, and we leave those towards the latter part of the year. We do have resources to complete everything that's within that table now. So we are supported by an array of external contractors. Everything has been procured in. So again, some of it is around slippages will be around the service area as well. So they may not have the time to devote to an audit that we think, well, we can put back, and if something can take its place, we will do that instead and defer that, like you've seen for the cancellations, through to 24-25. But at this moment in time, touch wood, everything that we've got left to do is scheduled to be done. But again, there will be some things that do slip off at the end, come the end of the year, because it just can't be accommodated. But at the moment, we have got the resources to achieve everything that's left to do.
If I can just do one second question. The amount of, I think it was the high outstanding ones, which are down to do, I think, with a lot of the schools side of things. Do you think that the relationships that we've got between what we're trying to do here and with the schools is something that is developing to help those? Do you think that high level of numbers that are there is something that is quite typical at the moment. Would you say that that's an unusual figure or an improving one?
We only introduced the online recommendation tracking portal last year for schools. So again, that has been quite a, I suppose, a culture shift in terms of getting them to, I suppose, be more up to date in terms of giving an update on their recommendations. So we do assist them. I think I've previously said that at the moment, because we've changed our risk assessment process for schools in terms of who we select to go out and see, some schools have not had an audit for some time. So again, that's a bit of a culture shift. So we do work with those schools. By the end of this financial year, we'll have seen all the schools that haven't had an audit for some time now, relatively recently. So hopefully we'll come to the end of the number of limited assurance reports that we're getting. Like I've said before as well, is we do have representation at the Bursa Forum meetings to try and highlight where there are issues, and we've just got some draft comms ready to go out just to give some further feedback in terms of the common weaknesses that we're finding, to try and allow schools to put right some of their processes before we do look at them. But it's difficult to say. Tracking these school audit recommendations is quite new here. So hopefully the numbers will come down. But because we've got the online tracking system, it does allow us to have that greater visibility. So we will keep it under review and continue to monitor it.
Thank you, Debbie. We'll move on to agenda item 11 now. That's the forward plan for the audit and standards. That's Lisa. And then we'll have a short break before we go into the exempt items, okay?
Thank you, Chair. This is the standard item which outlines the agenda items for forthcoming meetings of the Audit and Standards Committee, and it keeps a track of where we are in relation to our outstanding external audit reports as well. So we'll keep those on the forward plan, and as and when they become presented to meetings, then we'll obviously incorporate them within that relevant committee meeting details. So planned for, you've got the ones for February, March and April, and discussions that we've had to date with the new external auditors, KPMG. They're hoping to bring their audit planning reports for 23-24 probably either to the March or the April meeting moving forward. So main items for next time will be the member officer relations, future audit arrangements for the outstanding accounts, strategic risk management, and also the remuneration, the details for the recruitment of the independent co-opted member that we discussed and approved at the September meeting. So I'm happy to take any questions. If there's any additional items that members would like to be incorporated within the forward plan, then please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. The transformation plan started in December 21 after this committee looked at quite a lot to do with SEND. And so that's been running now for 2 years, roughly. And the last couple of reports I've seen, the Accelerated Progress Plan and the SEND Transformational Plan still coming into bits that you've talked about throughout the last couple of reports. So I really would love to get Haluk back in to talk about where we're at, because I did notice as well there's still a capacity issue. So it would be nice, I think, to see him back in, if members would agree.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trowbridge. I fully support that.
I do too. I've had serious issues with Mr. Hallett. I also want him back in. So, right, thank you very much for that.
Not with him personally.
Should be supported by the Chief Executive, I would have thought.
Well,
it's transformation, after all, and we've got a new Chief Exec, so new people, new brooms maybe, or different, but I would quite like to understand the new Chief Exec's take on transformation.
I would love to say a little bit more, but I'd rather do it when we go into the next section. But I'd agree.
Right, well, I'm going to read the exclusion of the public. I'd like to thank William for coming today. Right, that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure or exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 as indicated below. Thank you. If you'd all like to have a little